Donald Trump has the best chance he's ever had in his political career to win a general election. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another video with On Point Politics. Make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe, comment down below, and follow me on X in the description down below. And so, looking at this electoral map, this is a model that 538 actually created, which I've actually tested and is pretty cool because what it does, it is essentially you can lock down states for either candidate that you would like to do, and based on that, you get the odds of where the states are. Now, clearly, they took their own polling averages, so this model is a little skewed left. But let's say for the safe Republican states, Utah, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, West Virginia, including Missouri, are all going Republican, and as well as Alaska and South Carolina. Those are all going. For the Democrats, California, Oregon, Washington, Colorado, pretty much gone. Illinois, pretty much gone. Maybe we won't even put Colorado there yet exactly. Maybe we'll leave it in that kind of like toss-up category for now. We'll kind of leave it there. DC is basically completely gone. Maryland is gone. Delaware's gone. New Jersey, New York, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, as well as DC, including Maine's 1st Congressional District, the 2nd Congressional District, as well as Nebraska's 1st and the 3rd Nebraska Congressional District vote. And so when you do this, effectively, Donald Trump is already the favorite to win Georgia, North Carolina by a lean margin, and Arizona. When you just solidify all the Republican states and you solidify most of the Democrat states, Colorado going in the safe column doesn't really affect anything that much. We'll kind of play around with this map here. But let's give them Florida, right? Because Florida at this point in time is a very solidly Republican state. The registrations have essentially been plus 1 million on net compared to Republicans and Democrats for the GOP. It's been getting redder. It's been trending to the right, and Donald Trump won it by 3.5 points when Biden had a 51% national approval rating. Donald Trump will not lose the state of Florida as of right now, including Ohio, Iowa as well, which now puts Pennsylvania in the lean Republican column. Texas will more than likely not be going in that column right now as well. It'll be safe Republican. It is not going to be going Democrat either. So we can basically say that all of these states are a lock. Now, for the Democrats, New Mexico and Virginia are lean margins in our forecast. So because of that, I am going to put them in that particular column, as well as Maine at large. Those are lean states right now in the Democrat side. So to even be fair to them, we're going to be putting that in that column right now. And looking at this, guys, Donald Trump is already the favorite in North Carolina, Georgia, and Arizona to win the election. Even if you were to give Minnesota and New Hampshire, it doesn't really make a whole lot of a difference, except it does put Michigan and Wisconsin in that sort of lean Democrat column. But this is what happens, guys, because Donald Trump has won the election in 2016 by roughly, give or take, a certain amount of electoral votes. I mean, in 2016, he won the election with 306, narrowly taking the Rust Belt with him. 2020, he lost all those states and lost Georgia and Arizona. Usually, what happens is the major party nominee who wins sweeps most of the swing states, if not almost all of them, and picks off an extra one. This case for Biden, you could argue Arizona and Georgia were the extra ones. For Trump, you could argue Michigan was technically the extra one. Maybe even Pennsylvania. New Hampshire was a pretty close one to go. But guys, Donald Trump, you can see, won the most of the swing states. Same thing for Joe Biden. Same thing for Barack Obama in 2012. Same thing for him in 2008. So the past 4 cycles, the winner tends to win all of the swing states. And what this model does is it basically goes off of that. So here's the problem for the Democrats. If you give them North Carolina, the Republicans at least, and you all know that the Republicans have been pretty skilled in North Carolina. I mean, their base is just really, really solid there. And that puts them at about 235. We can give the Democrats Hawaii. Don't know why I didn't fill that out, as well as Nebraska's 2nd. DC, I don't know why it's not filling in safe, but either way, looking at this, Donald Trump is still the favorite to win the election in this scenario. This is the problem with Kamala Harris. Let's say she gets Michigan, right? That puts the election at a little bit of a tie statistically because Trump still has some paths to get there. If we give up her Pennsylvania, her chances go up ridiculously high because she would only need a Wisconsin or an Arizona to win. And in this case, her most likely path is the 270 path in the Rust Belt, which is a very narrow path. She has to get 270 right there through the Rust Belt. And looking at that, look at that, guys. 99 out of 100 times because she does get 270 electoral college votes right out the gate. So it's very fascinating that this is the path for Kamala Harris. The other one that has been relatively suggested as of right now, the one that's been kind of floated around, is the Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania path, which again, at that point, Harris is the favorite as well in the electoral college. You could see it's calculating the odds there, but she would be the favorite. Technically would be the favorite in the electoral college if this happened. You see, look, Harris wins 100 times out of 100. Like, literally, Trump cannot win in any scenario because he's boxed out of 270 electoral college votes. The problem is Kamala Harris is performing worse with younger voters, more diverse voters, so more Africans and Hispanics, and Donald Trump is still polling better than he was last time with white voters, a group that he always gets underestimated with. So all the polling data in Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada are looking really good for him. And in Nevada, it's relatively close. And let's say he wins Arizona. Let's say he gets Arizona. We're going to go ahead and do this once this loads. We're going to say, let's say, he doesn't get Michigan off the gate. So let's say he doesn't get Michigan right off the bat. And let's say he doesn't get Pennsylvania either. Let's say that's what happens, right? And in this case, he'd be really close to victory if that happened. But we're going to go ahead and not even give him the Rust Belt states. We're going to go ahead and see what happens if we give him the Sun Belt, which is going to be very interesting because you're going to notice very quickly that Donald Trump's chances are ridiculously high if he's winning it. Now, if she wins Georgia, look at that. That is where you see she would be the favorite. Looking at, and we'll test some other pass out too, guys. But looking at Nevada, we'll go ahead and flip this to a safe red category, just giving him the state. Guys, if Donald Trump is up in those battlegrounds in 268, if he really has that number, which is technically what I think his floor is right now, his absolute floor in the election is literally not even losing Nevada, Arizona, or Georgia. And we've back-tested this looking at very liberal pollsters. And what you'll notice is Kamala Harris literally has to win all 3 Rust Belt states in order to even win the election. She has to win all 3. Look at this. At this point, Donald Trump, even though Harris gets Michigan, he's still at 77 out of 10. And if she gets Pennsylvania, the whole election comes down to Wisconsin at that point. And we'll look at the odds here when they update. But you do see it's about 50-50. And Trump has a very narrow inherent advantage in the election once it's there. But guys, if he were to just win Michigan, she's locked out of 270. If he picks off any of the Rust Belt states, it's effectively over. There would be nothing to talk about after. Like, it would be done. It would be finished after that. It would be completely over. Completely over. And so that is why Donald Trump, the way he's polling right now, if he's up in Georgia and North Carolina, which more than likely he is up there, his chances on election day are looking really good. They are looking spectacular. Now, let's say that Kamala Harris shows up Michigan. At that point, her path is a lot better. Now, let's go ahead and fill in the same states that I did before for the Democrats. Let's go ahead and we'll fill those out. And we'll do the same for the Republicans because I want to go ahead and show you guys something. This is the path that Kamala Harris wants to take to get to the White House, which I think is really interesting. And it's a pretty unique strategy, in my opinion. What she wants to do is go through Michigan, North Carolina. It's pretty fascinating, and you'll see it here in a second. You're going to see it here because it's very, very interesting. I do not know why that just happened on the screen, but the whole point is, guys, if she gets Michigan, North Carolina, and Georgia, like literally there's no path for Trump to win the election. There's literally no path. We'll give him even Ohio and Texas and Florida just to kind of, basically bake that in. But look at that. Even Indiana. Look at that. See? That's the map. Iowa, Ohio, Florida, Texas. We'll give California, as well as Vermont, Massachusetts, D.C., and Maryland, just to give them the absolute floor states. So when you do that, the path for Trump is basically non-existent if she gets that path. If North Carolina is a toss-up, his chances are very slim. Extremely slim. If he wins North Carolina, it's a little bit higher, but if he doesn't, it's very, very slim. And at that point, guys, if he's losing North Carolina outright, look at that hit. Look at his odds. His odds are very low. He'd have to run it up in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada to even be able to do it, which currently, the latest Atlas Intel poll currently has Donald Trump winning the Rust Belt, and he's up in Arizona and Georgia. And you see here, it's a little bit more competitive, which is quite interesting. It's a little bit more of a closer election, which is very, very interesting. But when we look at this, guys, look at this map. At that point, he's got most of them. I mean, Harris can still win through here, but I think at this point, once she gets Arizona, the whole thing comes down to Georgia. And Georgia is particularly interesting because you have a lot of African-American voters, and at this point, guys, if Georgia goes red at this point, well, I think here, once this happens, it's basically game over for Donald Trump. But really, his best path is really the Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia path. It really is his best path because if he wins this path, Kamala Harris effectively has a very narrow path to victory, which would include her having to flip a blue state, or a red state, excuse me. She'd have to flip a red state into the Democrat column in order to even offset North Carolina, Georgia, Pennsylvania. And even when you put Pennsylvania as a toss-up, guys, when he's up in North Carolina and Georgia, it basically almost gives him the whole thing. Especially when he has Texas and Florida. Guys, it is looking really, really, really rough. I'm telling you, it's looking super duper duper rough if that's the case. But look at that, guys. Just incredible stuff. And if Florida's going blue, it's over. But looking at Georgia and North Carolina, that is his essential path to be at least 251. And at that point, he's got a few combinations. If he's winning Nevada at this point, chances are, look at that. If he's up in Nevada, Georgia, and North Carolina, the Rust Belt's already likely, and Minnesota and New Hampshire are toss-ups. So that's the funny part. If he's guaranteed those states on election night, and we'll be using this on election night because this will be pretty cool to use, but because it'll be fun because we could lock the state for a certain candidate and be like, okay, Trump's odds according to this are a little bit higher, or Harris's are higher. Like, it'll be cool to fill this out because at that point, we would have a good idea who's winning. If Trump's at 257, which he's been at for a while, and I think I'm ready to add Arizona into that column, at that point, there is almost no path for Harris to win except those Rust Belt states. And at that point, Donald Trump would be favored in those battlegrounds, and Minnesota and New Hampshire would effectively be toss-ups. And if Wisconsin were to go red, and Pennsylvania were to all be a lock for Donald Trump, that puts Minnesota in the lean Republican column, which is where I currently have it in my forecast. And my floor for likely Republican states, it actually goes up to Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. It's 297 electoral college votes is my floor. And even Oregon, Washington, Colorado, Illinois, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, they're likely. This is literally my electoral map, guys. When you put the floor that I have for Donald Trump right now, according to my prediction, which is currently over here. If we go and fill this out really quick, I'll be able to show you guys what my forecast is looking like. But it is just, I mean, it's a bloodbath for Trump. He's winning a lot of states very easily. He's winning a lot of states by very, very good margins. But guys, when you do my prediction map, literally that 538 model is basically matching up what I have for the election if Trump is basically winning Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and the rest of the swing states like right out the gate. It's literally showing likely New York, likely Connecticut. It's showing the exact same margins, and I think that's very fascinating that it's actually showing that. Even Minnesota, they have it going. Michigan, at that point, they would have to have it going at that point. I mean, at that point, it has to be going. At that point, that'd probably even be a likely state, to be honest. But yeah, look at that. It's literally the Republicans are up in Michigan. And the rest of the states are basically toss-up. And here it's lean. In all the other states, it's a toss-up. So right now, Donald Trump, according to my forecast, is somewhere around here. And just plugging it into 538's new model, he would be the favorite to win Michigan more than likely if he's winning Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. And Minnesota, at that point, would already be lean Republican in that column. And at that point, if he flips New Hampshire, guys, oh man. If he's winning New Hampshire, if he's actually flipping the state of New Hampshire, that already puts him to be the favorite in Virginia at that point. If he's winning that state alongside Minnesota. So let's say he picks up New Hampshire and Minnesota. If he does that, this is the map we're at. We would be at the 2. We would practically be at the 345 map that I had Joe Biden at. And not only that, if he were to win all the swing states that I have him winning right now, which would hypothetically be all of these, he would be the favorite to win Virginia and New Hampshire. And Colorado would be a lean margin for Kamala Harris. It'd be a lean state, which is crazy. And if I give Virginia away at that point, it's effectively, it's over. It would be over. I mean, it was already over at the beginning, but that path, Georgia, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, that is, even if Donald Trump is already winning Georgia, North Carolina, his chances are ridiculously high at winning the election. Because again, guys, all of the swing states tend to vote together, and Georgia is now a perennial swing state now. And if Georgia's going red, if it's secure, if it's called on election night and he's winning Georgia 100%, and he's 100% got North Carolina, chances are he's probably getting the rest of the swing states. And if Wisconsin breaks red, you already see that most of the states already lean in Donald Trump's column because, again, the Rust Belt has always voted together since 1992 effectively. And so that's why it would be such favored odds for him to win the election if he even picked off one of the states. That's why I was saying when the Biden matchup was happening that Trump is basically guaranteed to win Wisconsin against Biden almost no matter what. And if we plug that in, look at that. He's already ahead in the Electoral College. He'd be the favorite to win 81 out of 100 times. I mean, we already had Trump's floor against Biden. I mean, we had him losing 312 as the floor. And I think we also had him down in Minnesota as the floor. I think I legit had Trump winning Minnesota as the damn floor at that level, which is crazy that Minnesota was even considered the floor level. That, like, I'm telling you, that's completely nuts. I would have never imagined the day that I basically would have given Trump Minnesota, like, off a whim. Like, oh yeah, it's obviously going red now. I would have never thought that in previous years. But Joe Biden was polling so badly in our adjusted aggregates, he was down 7.5 points nationally, that I basically had to guarantee Minnesota for Trump. I had to. There was no other way to skew it. There literally was not another way that I could skew it. At all. Not even close. I literally could not skew it to not give Donald Trump automatically the favorite in that state. I literally could not do it. And even Virginia at one point, I actually was giving it to Trump off a win too, because at one point Trump was up in the aggregate. He was up in the aggregate in Virginia. He was up in the aggregate in Virginia at one point when Biden was in the race. So even at that point, I had to give Trump Virginia, because if he was leading the aggregate, the chances of him losing the state were basically zero. And so this was kind of my sort of expanded map. I would even say that, yeah, he probably would win Minnesota back then. And at that point, that basically puts us where we were at. And New Mexico was another state that I was very bullish on the chances as well. And so when you kind of really had this map here, and New Hampshire and Maine were really the only ones that I was still like, okay, they're going to be toss-ups. But the chances are, if Trump is up in New Mexico, he's up in Virginia, he's up in Minnesota, the chances were he probably was going to be up in New Hampshire and Maine too, and Oregon would have been relatively competitive, and Colorado was a toss-up, which was absolutely nuts. If Virginia or New Hampshire at one point would have basically been guaranteed to go red, that would, and Maine at large too, like if those were guaranteed to go in that column, at that point, effectively, New Jersey and Oregon would have became toss-ups, and Colorado would have leaned Republican. So at that point, once Biden was down in the debate and he was going to start losing support, at that point in this model, Colorado would already been the favorite to go. It already would have been the favorite. And Joe Biden, guys, in 2020, I practically had him winning the Rust Belt like right out the gate. I literally had him winning the Rust Belt right out the gate at that point. And again, guys, when you model it out and you do it, look at that. When you have him winning the Rust Belt, practically all the states, Nevada basically leans Democrat. I probably would have even given him Nevada automatically too. And at that point, Arizona and Georgia would have had to have at least been toss-up states, which is about right. That is actually fairly accurate as to what it would have been. And you see, they were effectively toss-ups. And if Arizona would have gone, Georgia probably leans blue in the forecast as well. More than likely. Oh, it doesn't even go. But you see, at that point, it's 100 out of 100 chance, more than likely. You can clearly see that there. That's what it's calculating right now. It's basically going to have no pass for Donald Trump to have beaten Joe Biden. But again, I already knew that Donald Trump was effectively, unfortunately, me going into the 2020 election, my political instinct told me that he was effectively DOA. He was effectively DOA there. That was my political instinct, that he was already DOA in the Rust Belt, and so practically he basically didn't even... He had a chance to win, but looking at it at a certain angle, you pretty much should have known that Trump would have lost re-election because he had way too little ground to catch up. He had too much ground to catch up in the Rust Belt, and his candidate that he was running against had way higher favorables than even himself did. So that was the major issue. But guys, that is it for this video. Kind of playing around with this model was actually really fun. If you guys did enjoy this analysis, make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe if you want more content just like this. And I will see you guys in the next video.